I now want to call up Kimberley Strassel to get the Barbara Olson Award for Excellence in Journalism. I was asked to introduce her, but today at lunch, I'm going to steal an introduction from Ben Stein, who said, when I see the name Kimberley Strassel on the newspaper in the Wall Street Journal, when I see that little picture, I know I have to read the column because I'm going to learn something. It's going to be important, and it's going to be true. And that, I think, is a wonderful introduction and a wonderful statement to say for anybody who is a writer. Kimberley Strassel, if you can come up and accept both your award and say thank you.
Hello. So first of all, I would just like to add congratulations to Ben Stein. Well deserved. Not only did I get to have lunch with him today, believe it or not, I'd never met him before. Can you believe that? And not only was he as funny and thoughtful as I imagined, but he told me I looked young, which, you know, just a word out there to all the woke women in the world. That is still the way to a girl's heart, so thank you, Ben. First of all, I want to thank the American Spectator for doing this every year. Not just for all the journalism they do, but for this event as well, too. To Bob and to Melissa and to Vladi, to Grover for tonight. It means a lot to all of us to be able to come together. And specifically, I want to thank them for every year honoring Bob Bartley. Bob Bartley hired me at the Wall Street Journal. And if not for that, I wouldn't be out doing what I do today. And just a funny story, my most memorable moment with Bob Bartley, for those of you who may remember him, I had just started and was very new with the editorial page, and I came from a logging community in Oregon, so a little different than some of the people who normally came to work at the Wall Street Journal editorial page. And somehow I ended up writing a feature about country music and about how it was leading this kind of counterculture revolution and representing conservatives at the most basic level. And I believe it actually quoted at the beginning of it an entire segment of Garth Brooks' The American Honky Tonk Bar Association. And I remember sitting at my little cubicle in the dark in the Wall Street Journal offices, and Bob came up and sat next to me, and I thought, oh man, what does this mean? And he just looked at me, and those of you who knew him, was not a man of many words. He looked at me and goes, I like this. Do more of this. And walked away. So I did. Anyway, I'd also just like to say how honored I feel to get the Barbara Olson Award. What an amazing person. It's been 18 years now, but how many of us have, over the past 3 years in particular, thought, wow, what would it have been like to have Barbara around during the Kavanaugh fight? Or wow, what would it have been like to have had Barbara around while the House Republicans were looking into the FBI doings 2016? I'm sure we would know a lot more than we know now. So it is an honor. Just a quick word on journalism, since this is a journalism award. Let's all be honest, I think one reason that maybe I'm even getting this is because if I've had any good stories over the past few years, and I hope I have, it's in part because my mainstream media counterparts have not done a very good job. And you know, we can say, well, yay us that we did, but it's not good for our society. Okay, in the book that's there on the table, I wrote a whole chapter on the mainstream media. and their role in what we've seen as the resistance in the last few years. Because this is what has happened. We've always had bias in the media, but this is different. They are overtly, actively engaged in one side of a partisan war. And this is not a good thing. And my one regret of the book is that I put that chapter at the end, and I wish I'd have made it first, because I have come to believe that if they had been doing their job, we wouldn't have seen the circus of the past 3 years. You know, if the media, for instance, had been holding to all those things that they tell us when we learn about journalism, that when you look at government and government tells you a tale, you need to be skeptical. Why? Because government is a source of power, and we have to wonder if what they tell us is true. And so if they'd have done that, and when there were former members of the FBI coming to them, this same media that for all the years beforehand had said, it's such a problem that the government is engaging in surveillance of American citizens, a Patriot Act, metadata, reverse targeting. If they'd have had that same standard when former members of the FBI came and said, you know, really it was a very patriotic thing that we did when we surveilled an American political campaign. Maybe if they'd have had that attitude, we wouldn't have had a special counsel in the last 3 years of drama. And maybe if they'd have maintained the same standard, one standard, instead of two standards of how they handled political parties, we wouldn't even be having the impeachment drama we had right now. I think it's very hard for the press to, on one hand, say that it was perfectly fine for the Hillary Clinton campaign to funnel disinformation to the FBI for use in surveillance against a political campaign, but that it is an impeachable offense for Donald Trump to mention Joe Biden on a telephone call. They are simply not comparable. So we need that to come back, because you know what, our media, we rely on them. It's important for government, for the civic society, that they act as a neutral arbiter of things, that they call balls and strikes. They haven't been doing it. The good news, we do have a free press. We had lots of people, many of whom are in this room, who did tell the real story of what happened over the last few years. And who will continue to do so. And for that, we should all be very grateful, and we should be very thankful that the American Spectator is one of the people contributing to that, and also making sure that we remember what's important in a free and fair press. Thank you.
Kimberley, thank you. Thank you for your columns. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your new book, which I recommend to everybody. It's an important part of the conversation as we move forward.